Hello and welcome to part 23 of our video series on building a Node, Express and Postgres based API. Today we're going to be adding integration tests for the user authentication route that we created in the last video. There's a link in the video description for the GitHub repo that we're working from, so if you want to check that out, you can do and you can follow along. The branch that we're using today is going to be part 23 start. So let's just jump straight in. So what we're going to be doing is going to be doing similar to what we've done for the creation integration test in the past. We're going to be adding a new set of tests that are going to test how we authenticate our users. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this, copy this, because we use a similar we'll do a similar setup to what we've done in the previous tests, so we can make use of the boilerplate code that we've got in there. So we'll do authenticate.integration.test.js. What we'll do is we'll leave this 200 response test in there, and we'll just remove the rest of those. And then what we'll do is we'll just update this, authenticate, and then we'll just do authenticates a user. So what we'll do, we'll write 3 tests. We'll do one that's a success for authenticating user, we'll do one that's a failure because the email address is invalid, and we'll do one that's a failure because the password is invalid. So what we'll do, just head over to our routes file here, and we're going to be testing this particular route here. First thing I've noticed is we're actually missing a root for this one, so let's just add that now. Then, oh my goodness, I can't spell authenticate. Okay, authenticate, that's going to be authenticate user. Otherwise you'll end up with like a 404 because Express can't route it to the right place. So we've added that one in, and let's get started. So what we're going to want to do, for a successful authentication to occur, there needs to be an existing user in the database. So what we can do is we can make use of this set of code here, which makes an API call to create a user for us. And then what we can do is we can just extend upon this. So we'll just copy this. We don't care about the response from this because we've got a separate integration test that already tests all of that. So what we can do is we can just write one here that does authenticate. And then what we're going to do is pass in the email, which is going to be the user.email, and then the password, which is going to be the user.password, and that's going to be the body that we pass into this authenticate. So this is similar to what you would expect, a login form on a website to send. They'll just send an email address and a password. We're still expecting the response to be 200. We're still expecting the response to be a copy of the user and the token. So that's exactly what we're expecting to be returned from the front end. So what we'll do is we'll just head over, we'll start up our service, so we'll do npm run dev to make sure that our service is up and running, and then we'll kick off our integration tests. Npm run integration test, and what we're actually going to get first of all is an error. And that's to be expected. I did notice a small bug after the last video. So what we've got here in the error logs that are coming back is we've got an API error, duplicate key violates unique constraint authentication tokens user ID key. And what this relates to is, if we go back up to our authentication tokens table migration that we created for when we created our database, is we've got this user ID here, which is an integer, it's not null, and it has to be unique. And this uniqueness is then compounded by the fact that it's a foreign key to this users table that we've got as well. So what's happening here is when we create our user to begin with, it creates an authentication token that gets returned to the front end. And now when we authenticate our user, it's trying to create a fresh authentication token for the front end rather than reusing the existing one. That way, if we ever wanted to add a timer for how long this is valid for and things like that, we can, it's a good practice just to keep refreshing the token every time somebody re-authenticates. So what's happening here is it's trying to insert the same another token for that user ID into the authentication tokens table, and it's violating this unique one token per user policy that we've got. So what we need to do is, what's quite handy is we've got the error here and we've got the constraint here. So what we'll do is we'll head over to our authentication token store in this insert query, and what we'll do is we'll add an extra piece here to deal with when there are conflicts on this particular case. So we'll do on conflict, on constraint, then we'll pass in the constraint name, and then we'll do update set token equals $2, which is the second argument, which is token here. So what this is doing is it's just saying if there is a if we run into this constraint, all we need to do is set the token to be the new token that's there, and that will work perfectly fine. So we'll do that, we'll save that, and then we'll head back to our integration test. We'll just make sure our service is up and running again, head back to our integration tests, run those again, and we've now got a passing test, which is great. So what we'll do is we will head back to our authentication token, authentication integration tests. We'll add another one here, which will be a 400 submitted email address does not match any users. And then what we can do is we can actually just delete this part here, and then we'll expect the res.status to equal 400, and then we'll expect the body to equal email invalid email address or password, I believe it is. So let's do that. So all we're doing here is we're just sending a post to this authentication route, and we'll just put in here joe.blogs@test.com, and then we'll just put in a invalid password. So let's just wait for that to restart. Run our integration tests again. Ooh, we've got a failure. Let's have a look. So submitted email address, request. Oh yes, I remember now. So what we actually have to do is we have to wrap this in a try-catch block. So let's have a look. Yeah, catch. So what happens when Axios posts and it gets an error response? It'll actually throw that as an error. So just grab these, and let's just have a look at how we do this within the creation tests. So we've got try catch, and we've got these ones here: error.response.status. We've got all those, so we can pretty much make the same use of these create ones here. So we'll just add that one, catch error. And then we'll try this one again once the service is back up and running. So I've got okay, email address is already in use. Oops, yeah, no, that's not right. Invalid email address or password. So just update the status message that comes back. So we've got a great one there, which is good. Then what we'll do is we'll just grab this one again. So what we're going to want to do, and we'll do 400 submitted password does not match that user. And then what we can do is we can just grab this, drop that one in there. And what we can see is we can just update this email address to be this email address. So it's going to find the right user, but it's going to be submitting this password, which is actually not the same as this password here. So this should give us the confidence that when an invalid password is submitted for a user, that it doesn't end up returning us a valid token for the user to log in with. And what we've got there is we've got these new authenticate tests. So we've got authenticate to user, which is great. Submitted email address does not match and it returns a 400, and return a 400 when submitted password does not match that of the user. So we've now got the three kind of common cases for integration testing there, so that should cover us off for those. So what we'll do is we'll wrap the video up there, and what we'll do in the next video, there's a couple of things that I'm not super happy about with some of our testing code, and that mostly revolves around the fact that we've got this user being kind of created, or this user object being created multiple times over the course of all of our tests. So what I'd like to do is see if we can find a nicer way of generating this mock data for our tests so that we're not having to constantly keep recreating the same thing. So I'll have a look at improving our mock data generation in the next video, but we'll wrap it up there. I hope the video's been informative, and I'll see you next time.